Welcome to the Guitar Department. I'm your host, Joe Alton, and today, on this episode, we have got IPR Studio One's Tony Dehner. Be sure to stay tuned, man. It's going to be a great show. We're going to jam, we're going to talk. There's a 12-bar blues. Stay tuned. And we are back, and I'm sitting here with IPR Studio One's Tony Dehner. Tony, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Glad to be here.
I met you at the Musicians Meetup at XBK last, was it September?
Yeah, yep. And I remember when you shot me an email a couple months ago, you know, one of those, hey, I do this show called the Guitar Department. We should have you on sometime. That'd be great. One of those things I never thought it would actually happen, just kind of, and then I hear from you, it's, oh, cool, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excited to be here.
Everything about your bio, you're known as a music journalist, possibly even a music critic. I'll ask you for your opinion on that at some point here, but also, all of your bios tell me that you play guitar.
Yeah.
And here you are, Tony Dehner, with a guitar in your hand.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's talk about the guitar first.
So this is kind of commonly known as a Fender Fat Strat. When it was new, they called them the Big Apple Strat. I'm not sure where that name comes from. But this is basically your standard Fender Strat. Mute myself there. 2 pickups, but you still got the 5-way switch.
Yeah.
So this is a Seymour Duncan 59 in the neck and a Pearly Gates Plus in the bridge, known for being super loud and bright.
Yeah.
So right here, you got, you know, full humbucker, both humbuckers, full humbucker.
Just like a 3-way.
Yeah. If you go here, then it's just this coil.
Okay.
For that, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan,
SRV,
Jimi Hendrix next. And here you got both of these.
The mids, awesome.
Yeah, so you got that kind of sound, and then you can get big beefy humbucker up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds great. And it's beautiful too. Look at that finish.
Yeah. You know, when I went, I got this guitar at Bob's in Cedar Falls, Bob's Guitars.
Yeah,
college graduation present to myself. I had my eye on a different Strat, but I was like, I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to try out like 10 different guitars.
Yeah.
And I went in, saw this one, I was like, what is that? And so I'd try a guitar, go back to this one. Try a guitar, come back to this one. And I went home, slept on it, had a dream that someone else came in and bought it. You know, went back the next day and it was still there. So I said, okay.
That's the one.
Meant to be.
Yeah. That's a great guitar. It's a great story too.
Yeah.
And that's, you said that was in 98?
98, yeah, so I've officially dated myself. I try to avoid doing that on air. But
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
The reason I bring up the date is I'm actually playing a 96.
Hey, cool. All right.
This was my second ever guitar. It's a guitar I sort of learned to play on, and it is a 68 reissue. And it's the 50th anniversary of Fender as a company, so it's got a little 50th anniversary tag here on the back. Otherwise, it's a standard Strat, but it came out in 96. So you're playing in 98, and I'm playing in 96. And here we are in 2023.
Yep.
As we've talked about, you're a music journalist, IPR broadcaster, host of Gas Money.
So Gas Money doesn't exist anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Oh no.
We just kind of folded local music into more of that into everything else we do instead of setting aside an hour for it.
I did notice that I was hearing more local music on tracks.
Yeah.
On Studio One tracks.
That's very much a conscious effort on our part, and we're trying to do more of that. You might have heard, if you tune into our show, Studio One All Access, on the afternoons, you'll hear a live set from a local or regional artist. We're going to start interspersing individual songs into the shows.
Yeah.
Might have said too much there because I don't know when that's going to happen. But
sure.
Yeah, we're a small shop, so we're doing the best we can on that.
Yeah, no, you guys do some great work too.
Thank you.
And you guys have filled in for Bob Door's spot, if I'm not mistaken. For Backtrack.
So, excuse me, when Bob decided to not do Backtracks anymore, he hasn't retired.
No,
still doing Blue Avenue and the Beatles, still out there gigging.
Yep.
Just decided that was something that could go. We talked about, it's like, do we want to do another rock history show, or do we want to kind of do what we're doing in the evenings and just move it forward? And we decided to do that. And so we kind of flipped our clock a little bit. You might hear some more deep cuts from like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and then we'll definitely add in some more of the stuff that's in our current rotation as well.
Excellent.
So yeah, I try not to think of it as I'm taking over for Bob Dorr.
Well, no, and for one, that's not really a viable option because the people who loved Bob Dorr's show, they wouldn't really accept a replacement anyway. I sort of put him on a level with like Dick Young's. You know, once he's gone, there's no more Dick Young's. There's not somebody else taking the mantle. But also, that show, Backtracks, was 25 years or older, right? So that's 1998.
Yeah, and
that's Britney Spears. You know, that's In Sync and Backstreet Boys, and it's just hard for me to imagine Bob playing those on his show.
And even with some of the bands like that's Nirvana now too. Nirvana is, by our definition, a classic artist at Studio One, and you know, it was kind of like. How do we do that in the context of Backtracks? It's like, well, you know, we just decided to do our own thing there. But to clear the air, Bob was not forced out or anything. Very much chose to.
And we had Bob on the show.
Cool.
He was very much ready to move on. He said he'd done just about everything he could with that show, and I agree. He did a great job with that show. But it was, you know, it's good to have some fresh perspective on the broader music scene and on the local music scene, and that's where you guys step in. You and Mark Simmet, CeCe Mitchell, you guys have your featured release every week. It's not usually something local, but more something independent, like an indie label type thing.
It is usually a high-profile indie artist or or maybe somebody who's been at it for a long time has a new record. We kind of rely on the college charts for that. As we're recording this, the featured release right now is, geez, I can't even remember what it is right now. I've already done my shows for the week. So the featured release that we're going to be starting this coming week is the new album from Feist, who hasn't had an album in 6 years. It's a great record. She's playing a lot of nylon string guitar on this new album because when she was writing the songs, she had just adopted a baby girl. And out of necessity, she was playing a nylon string guitar so as not to wake up the baby during, and we're both dads, so we understand that. So it just very much came out of that practical, you know, I'm playing this nylon string guitar, here's a new song, oh, here's a record.
When my daughter was born, I became a lot more proficient in classical guitar because that would put her to sleep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'd been a classical guitar player basically all my playing career, but that really does help, that sort of mellow nylon string feel. Now, I said earlier that I'd sort of labeled you as a music critic. I would like to get your take on that. Listening to the little roundtables you guys have, the three of you, it doesn't come off like you're being critical of an album so much as you're being honest about your opinion of the album. But at its core, I feel like that's what a music critic actually is. So I'm wondering how you feel about that. Do you consider yourself a music critic?
You know, I don't know about that only because the word critic by itself has some negative connotations. When you hear like, oh, the critics hated this movie, it's like, oh, well, what do they know? You know what I mean? I appreciate what you said there about how we're just being honest about how we feel about it because, yeah, like if it's a new record by somebody like, here's an example of a recent example, The National. That new album by The National is good. None of us were in love with it, but we felt it needed to be heard. You know, we think this deserves to be out in the world. The National are a big indie rock band. We can't just pretend they're not there. So we're going to play this record, but we're also going to say, I didn't love it, but you might. So we're going to put it on Studio One. And you know, there's some great guest artists on there too that kind of really, I think, do make it an album worth checking out and worth paying attention to, even if the listener might feel the same way. And you know, it's something that it's always nice to be the guy who disagrees with the critic. Again, not to use that specific word, but the reason I use it is that it's you guys aren't just gushing over an album and finding every good thing you can possibly say about it. It's which would be very easy to do. And it'd probably make you more popular amongst the artists for themselves. But you are mostly positive in the reviews that you guys, the roundtables you guys have. But it seems like a very free conversational back and forth. Is there a lot of sort of pre-game planning before you guys go on? We will sometimes say like, I am going to talk about this song specifically, or I did some digging in to like on the internet and found this out, so I would like to talk about this. But that's kind of it. You know, we will kind of stop ourselves halfway through, like if we're pre-gaming like you're just describing. If I feel like I came up with a particularly clever phrase or something like that, I'll stop myself and say, let's save that for when we're recording, you know, or if I have a hot take or something like that that I'm excited to get out there. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, save the best for when the cameras are rolling.
Right, yep.
Yeah, that's hard, though.
Yeah.
You get in and you're
is.
all excited about something that you've been researching, and you start talking about it. We have that problem here quite a bit, and they just they tend to just leave the cameras rolling just in case. So we've also got festival season coming up, and that's a big time for you and for CC, as I understand it, to be heading out to all these festivals and just, you know, doing your thing, not just as a viewer and a listener, but you also represent IPR out there. What are you looking forward to the most this season?
So the 8035 Festival is coming up in, it's just a few weeks now. I did the math this morning and freaked myself out a little bit because we got work to do before then. But that's always so much fun. Last year doing it for the first time in a few years felt like just going home.
Yeah.
And we get to do it again. My daughter is old enough she can go now too and have fun. I'm excited. We will be busy at the IPR stage. We've got some great acts coming there. We got some great guitar and some great acts that are not going to feature the guitar so heavily at all. So I'm excited about both. House of Large Sizes are playing again at 8035 this year. They will be inducted into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame during their set. I'm going to try my best to make it for at least part of it, but I did get to catch one of the warm-up shows at Octopus a couple of weeks ago, and I think longtime House fans and people who are brand new to them will just be very excited by their set. Elizabeth Moen, if you haven't caught her, check her out at the main, I think she's playing the main stage this year. Incredible guitar player, incredible singer and songwriter. She has opened for Hozier not long ago. Got a big write-up in the Washington Post, and I said to myself, okay, well, it was nice knowing Elizabeth Moen while it lasted. And then I got an email from her. She has an EP of Arthur Russell covers coming out.
Really?
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but
well, we'll break a little news here.
She has an EP coming out.
Good.
Elizabeth has this new EP and wants to work with us on the release. It's like, okay, that was really nice to hear from her after all these wonderful things happening for her. And I'm excited about Big Boy from Outkast on Saturday night. That's
that'll be a good show.
Pretty epic headliner to close out the weekend. War on Drugs, one of my favorite bands. Adam Granduciel's a great guitar player as well. Hinterland, so we are scaling things back a little bit this year because last year we spent the whole weekend there, all 4 days, rented a camper, and we had to be dragged out of there.
Well, and Hinterland just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just blowing up.
It is kind of a difficult festival to cover. So I'm going to be there for about a day. I'm going to catch Orville Peck and Angel Olsen.
Yeah.
Going to have a photographer with me. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, those two are very big. And, of course, at 8035, we've got the local artists, Annie Kemble and B. Well, are going to be on stage.
Yes.
I believe Allegra Hernandez, who's been on the show, is supposed to be playing.
I'm not sure about Allegra. I'll have to check.
I'm going to say, I thought it had been announced that she was playing.
Maybe it has.
They were playing, excuse me.
Okay, sure.
But that's pretty exciting to have like not just the local stage, but to have some local artists sort of showcasing their bigger stage chops.
Yeah.
And B. Well's up and coming. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited for his set, and with Annie, that'll be. I've interviewed them both separately and had them both in our studios separately. I'm really excited to have them up there at the same time at our stage.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Let's talk about your guitar playing for a second.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously, we're a guitar show. It's great to have you talking about music, but I want to do a quick rig rundown here. Run me through your board. Let's get started at the beginning of the chain.
So we got the requisite tuner. I went with the Polytune. It's either the Polytune or the Boss.
Yeah, I've got the TU2. I've got a Polytune as well.
Yep. Going straight into this Boss noise suppressor. This is really nice because you can chain all of your drive pedals into a separate return.
Oh, yeah.
Return and send and return. So my signal goes from the tuner to this noise suppressor straight up to this crescendo, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
The pale green compressor made by barefoot effects. I never really got into compressors on guitar until I tried this one out. Now I never turn it off.
Yeah.
This pedal was sold to me by a good friend of mine, Michael Rogers. He plays in the band Salt Fox.
Okay.
He's going to be at our stage Friday night with Salt Fox. The Strymon Sunset, dual overdrive. You can have one side or both on, and there's a switch in the back so you can reverse the order of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So you can stack them separately.
Exactly, yep, or just kind of have them going in parallel. And I have this set up, the Texas side is basically a tube screamer, and then we have a JFET. I don't use this side as much because I don't normally go for the screaming loud stack sounds.
Oh,
that
yeah. So it's a
some of
higher gain on that
yeah,
side.
Yep.
Gotcha.
The Soul Food.
It's the clone.
The Klon clone.
Yeah,
yep.
one of
I'm
the
using
more
mine as
famous ones.
I'm using mine as a pure clean boost.
Okay. Yeah.
The Crescendo. This is a fun pedal. This is my pure like gimmick pedal, the one on the board that.
Listen to that.
Yeah, it swells in without having to have an actual volume pedal.
Yeah, or the volume knob trick.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Carbon Copy Deluxe. I used to have a much bigger delay unit that I could store 3 different settings. Had like 24 different delay types.
Sure.
One day I realized, I just want a really good analog delay. That's all I need.
That's
the
can't go
one
wrong
I
with
went
that.
for. Got to have the tap tempo. Got to have the ability to dial that in. And we got this here. This lets you put a little bit of modulation on the repeats.
Okay, yeah.
That's what that is.
A little bit of chorus.
The Strymon Flint, the reverb side is always on, and then we have the tremolo on that side. Yeah. And then we have this the 61 harmonic sound adds a little bit of a phasiness
So it's almost like
to
a
it.
vibe sound, like
Yeah.
a univibe. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yep.
All right, that's a fantastic rig. And you normally play through, you said, a Fender Blues Junior.
I have a Blues Junior at home, which needs a new reverb tank. So.
And so today we're borrowing a Boss Katana Mach 2 100-watt version. That's an excellent rig. So tell me about your playing. When did you start playing guitar?
So I started playing probably when I was a teenager, and it has not been consistent. I take breaks. It's just kind of the way I am. But I started getting into blues at a pretty young age. When I started listening to classic rock, I remember buying an issue of Guitar World magazine that had Stevie Ray Vaughan on the cover. I didn't know who he was at the time. I just knew they had a drawing at the back where you could win a whole bunch of gear. And I didn't have an electric at the time, so I was like, oh, well, maybe this will work out for me. And all these guys were talking about blues. I was like, what are they talking about? Because I knew nothing about music at the time. This is when hair bands reigned supreme, and they all listened to Led Zeppelin and Cream when they were growing up.
Yeah.
So, and then started getting into them, found out who they were listening to, found out about Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and all those guys like that. So, growing up, taking lessons, learned all the pentatonic scales, still learning the mysteries of the pentatonic. I thought once you knew the shapes, you were good to go. No, not so much. You got to learn how to use them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me.
No, you're fine. We're going to have to wrap this up, but
Okay.
would you stick around and jam out with me for a little
You
bit?
bet, yeah.
All right. IPR's Tony Dehner, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Ended on a G.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Should we try another one?
Yeah.
Let's do something a little different.
Yep.
How you feel about A major?
Sure.
Well, that's it for the guitar department. I'm your host, Joe Alton. Thank you for tuning in. I want to thank IPR's Tony Dehner for being here. Tony,
Of course.
when can people listen to tracks and All Access? And
So yeah, Studio One Tracks is on Monday through Saturday nights at 7 o'clock. Mark Simmet, CeCe Mitchell, and I spin in our favorites, some old favorites and some newer stuff. Studio One All Access, that's Saturday afternoons at 1 o'clock, Sunday night at 7. That's where we dig into the new featured release, classic artists. Here's some live sets from some great local and regional artists. We're on at 90.1 here in central Iowa. Yes. There's also a smartphone app. You can get it for Apple and Android devices. And we're on the web 24/7 at iprstudio1.org.
Excellent. Quick follow-up before we go.
Yeah.
I have a lot of local musicians on the show. If one of them wanted to be on All Access or have a track played on Tracks, how would they get in touch?
The best way to do that is to email us. That's studio1@iowapublicradio.org. That goes to me, Mark, CC, our executive producer, Lindsay Moon, and a couple other folks.
All right, well, there it is. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Joe.
It's been a great
pleasure.
interview.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. I also want to thank Riemann Music for offering us the Boss Katana Mach 2 for Tony to use for the amp. And I want to thank our producer, Jackson, and our camera operator, Matthew. And be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Guitar Department and Instagram at guitar_department. And with that, you ready to play us out?
Let's do it.
All right.